Is this a Japanese card? And why are these two cards related? Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Welcome to another kind of Pokemon card history type of video. I haven't made one of these in a while, but I always enjoy making them. I'm someone, even outside the hobby, I've always loved history. And that, of course, translates into the hobby. Whenever there's a card with a cool story or some sort of historic significance, a cool release or anything like that, I am always very interested in learning more about it. For that reason, I've always loved to collect these unique kind of interesting promos. And well, this Pikachu right here is one of those cards. I believe there are 3 reasons that make this Pikachu card incredibly unique and, in my opinion, very historically significant. However, I think most people don't know about this card or why it is, in my opinion, kind of a big deal. Now, if we take a closer look, you can tell it is a Yellow Cheeks Shadowless Pikachu in English. People with a keen eye will have already spotted some things about this card that are a little off, but I'll get to those later on in this video. But the first reason why this card is so interesting to me, well, it actually answers our first question, or somewhat answers it. Is this a Japanese card? Well, this card was printed and released in Japan. Even though it is an English Yellow Cheeks Pika, this card was printed and released in Japan. It came out on January 1st, 1999 and was included in the Pokemon CD Best Song Collection. Most people will be familiar with this product because of this card right here. The good old CD Promo Charizard. Such an epic card, of course. And so these 2 cards were actually included in the same product. The Charizard came with a bunch of other promo cards and a little stack of cards, and the Pikachu was included in its own little sleeve that was folded over and sealed with a piece of cellophane tape. Little side note, the Best Song Collection is actually very interesting in and of itself. I'll make a video about that in the future, at least I want to, because all the promos outside the Pika are actually just leftover cards from previous releases, so that's kind of interesting. Like none of them are unique or unique to that release. A lot to talk about, but that's for another video. Let's get back to the Pika. And so since this card was printed and released in Japan, does this make it a Japanese card? I mean, the text is in English. I don't know. You tell me. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in the middle, right? But I think that already is quite interesting to have an English card printed in Japan. Now, the second reason why this card is kind of a big deal history-wise is because it was released on January 1st, 1999. People may know that English base set was released on January 9th, 1999. So just over a week later, which makes this English language Pikachu from Japan older than the first edition Shadowless base set Pikachu that was released in English. Now that, I think, is quite interesting, because it means it's one of the first Pikachus ever printed in English. And right there, to me, history-wise, this is huge. I mean, this card is older. This English Shadowless Pikachu is older than the first edition base set Pikachu. Now, is it the oldest, the very first English Pikachu ever? It is not. In December 1998, so just a bit before this was released, Wizards of the Coast distributed the so-called demo game packs to retailers and stores across the United States. The demo game packs, very cool. They include a bunch of Shadowless cards, and in that pack are 2 Shadowless Pikachus. So technically, the demo game pack Shadowless Pikachus are the first English Pikachus ever released, which makes this the second oldest one. However, this English language Pikachu was the first ever Pikachu card from the TCG that was available to the general public. Demo game packs, they were not sold. They were just given to stores to promote the TCG. So this was the first Pikachu ever that was available to the general public. I think that's awesome. Now, the third reason why this card is so interesting to me is because you can actually tell that it is the one from Japan. The demo game pack Shadowless Pikachus, they just look like regular Shadowless Pikachus. Once they're removed from the demo game pack, they're just normal Shadowless Pikachus. This one, however, has very big differences, and you will always be able to identify that it is the one from Japan. And I'll demonstrate that right now. So how can you tell that this is the Yellow Cheek Shadowless Pikachu from Japan? Well, we'll start with a comparison to the base set first edition Pikachu. Immediately, you can see a massive color difference. Now, this is the one in German, but I think it's good enough for a comparison. You can see that the Shadowless one from Japan has much more muted colors. Now, all of these are like this. This is not like a sun-faded copy or anything like that. They all look like this. And you can see the regular first edition base set Pika has a lot more contrast and much richer colors. Now those in the know, those who know a little bit about the hobby will know that Shadowless cards in general are lighter than first edition cards. And it's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people like to collect Shadowless cards, because they prefer the slightly muted colors. And well, I have another card to show this difference. So let's take this Pikachu, or put it in the back a little bit, and we will look at an English regular Shadowless card, a Metapod. Now, it's not a Pikachu, it's not the best comparison ever, I don't have a regular Shadowless Pikachu, but the Metapod will do. And so if we put them side by side, so a Shadowless Metapod and Shadowless Pika from Japan, what stands out is of course the color of the border. The Japanese one, or the one printed in Japan, has a much lighter yellow border. And then in general, again, just overall slightly more muted colors. Okay, so I think I can demonstrate this difference even a little bit better if we compare the Shadowless Metapod to a first edition German Caterpie, Raupi in German. Yeah, you can see the color difference, right, between Shadowless and first edition. The borders are slightly different color, and then just the green in the background. I mean, if you just compare the green over here to the green over here, Shadowless, a lot more muted colors in general. But then if we go again, we put the Metapod versus or next to the Pikachu, you can see that the Pikachu is even more muted in color. It's even more lightly colored. So that alone already is a pretty good way to identify this card. If you see it on eBay, for example, even if it's not labeled as the one from Japan, you can usually tell right away that it is a Japanese one. However, by far the best way to identify the difference, and that really makes this card stand out, is actually the cardstock. Now, I cannot demonstrate the cardstock or how the cardstock feels in the video, of course not. But the one from Japan is much thinner. It feels a lot more flimsy. It's just a much thinner cardstock. What I can do is do a bit of a light test, and we will shine a light through the back of the card, and you'll be able to see how much thinner the Pikachu really is. All right, so I have to close my windows to make it a bit easier to see. But let's see if we can see the difference here. Okay, so I'm trying to keep about the same distance between the flashlight and the card. You can see it's very easy to read the text. It's very easy to see the Pokeball outline. And we go over to the Shadowless card. It's just a little bit harder to see. All right, about the same distance. Look how much the light pops through on the Pikachu versus the Metapod. Now, in person, in a very dark room, it's even easier to see. And it just shows that you can very easily identify this card as the one from Japan. And that to me is a big deal, because it makes it a unique and identifiable variant that has, in my opinion, historic significance. The first ever English language Pikachu that was ever made available to the general public. Pretty cool. As with almost all niche cards, most people do not agree with me and don't think they are this historically significant. And for this reason, quite a cheap card. This is not an expensive card, but I think it's a bit of a shame because PSA doesn't actually recognize this as a unique variant. Like if I sent this card in to PSA to get graded, it would just be labeled as a regular Shadowless Yellow Cheeks Pikachu. They don't differentiate, which to me is silly because I just demonstrated how easy it is to tell the difference, the color, the cardstock. And I genuinely believe if PSA recognized it as a unique variant, and they did so many years ago, then this could have been one of the cards that would have maybe kind of exploded a little bit in the boom for being the first ever made available to the public. Now, what is cool is that CGC actually does recognize this card as unique, and you can buy this card graded in CGC slabs, and they will say on the label Japanese CD Promo. So that is cool. Unfortunately, not as many people care about CGC, and I think it's kind of too late for this card. This should have been recognized as a unique variant by PSA many years ago. Raw, you can get it quite cheap. Even in CGC 9s, you can get it very cheap. In PSA 10, you'll have to pay up a little bit. You know, some sellers will list it as a Japanese one. Especially if you see it graded from Japan, it's likely that it is the one from Japan. But like I just told you, just looking at the color, you can tell right away that it is the one from Japan usually. And so you'll sometimes see eBay listings with the Japanese CD promo in the title for this card. And in a PSA 10, you know, the price goes up there a little bit, but it's not like super crazy expensive. I think genuinely, this is one of the coolest cards you can add to your collection. It doesn't matter if you're a Pikachu collector, if you are a Japanese collector, an English collector, just for the history. You know, I think this is a very cool card to, I don't know, add to a binder. I think it's awesome. That's it for today, though. I hope you enjoyed this Pokemon card history video. I hope you learned something new. Do you own one of these? Are you thinking about picking one of them up? Let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much for that, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.